All right. So I think this one's gonna be some mode talk, but really geared toward writers. So if you're not a writer and don't aspire to be one, then I'm betting this one will be a little light on interesting information for you. What I was gonna say, I think the main point here for this video is don't accept this bifurcation between minor key songs and major key songs, or minor keys and major keys. So if let's say the G minor scale is the B flat major scale, right? They're two different modes of the same scale, and I just think of this as the scale. You've noticed in my other videos I'll just refer to it by whatever the relative major is, whatever the one is, right? Even if the song is ostensibly in G minor, it's still the same as the key of B flat major. And I think that's an important thing there. It's like I consider songs that are in minor keys to just be the same as songs in major keys, except they're focused on the sixth chord, right? The sixth chord is the main chord. Rather than calling this sixth chord 1 and then having a 1, 2 that's diminished, a flat 3 that's major, 4 and 5 that are minor, flat 6 and flat 7 that are major, I don't think like that. I think 6 can be the main chord of the song. 1 can be the main chord of the song. Technically, any of them can, right? That's what we mean by modal songs, right? Like a Dorian song, like half of every Dorian song is like just 2 to 5. What we mean by mode is that there's the same scale, but it's got 7 different ways of being used, right? 7 different notes that your ear could hypothetically think is the main note of this song. Or to your ear, this note counts at any given note of any one of those 7 notes could count to your ear as resolution of the song. So let's take an example. Here I'm going to put it in A minor, C major, right? Phrygian is like us in the same key, but it's built around the 3 chord. So let's say we've got a chord progression. There's 3 to 4, 3 to 4. So and now, and let's say I play. Anyway, you get it. Like you're buying that 3 chord is the main chord. The main chord is the 3 chord counts as resolution. Like if that song is going and I end on that, you would feel like it's unresolved, right? But if I go to that 3 chord, it feels resolved, right? That 3 chord sounding like the main chord is what makes this scale sound like Phrygian, right? And that's one of the modes, one of the roles that scale can take. Those roles are defined by the chord progression, right? The chord progression is not what note you start on. It's the chord progression you're playing over that has all the power of screaming to the listener, this note counts as, this note is the main note of the scale, right? The reason that when you play a scale, like if I just sit down and go, right, like whatever note I play sounds like the first note. People will say whatever note you start on, that's what mode you're in, and that's absolute horse crap, absolute just garbage, right? It doesn't make sense even hypothetically, and it has no truth in the real world. When you're playing a scale, the first note you play just happens to sound like the main note because it was the first note you played. But that's because you're not playing with a song, right? Or over a chord progression, right? When it's just you playing by yourself, Like that just sounds like the main note because it's the first note you played. In the real world, the chord progression has all the power to delineate this note is the main note, right? It's only the chord progression. What note you start on is worthless. So, so check this out. 2. So here are the 6 chords. I'm gonna put a capo on because I'm feeling sassy. So 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6. Now check this out. 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna develop an analogy here. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are like the whites in your laundry. They're your socks. They're your underwear. 2, 3, 4, and 5 really have in the context of most songs, they have no real, not none, but they completely derive their emotional flavor from either 6 or 1. They really don't have emotional content, a strong emotional content of their own. Let's develop this analogy. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are check this out. 1. Yeah, the 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. Does that 2 sound happy or sad? Sounds happy as all get out, right? There's this old saying that, major chords sound happy, minor chords sound sad, and that's true if you play them at random. That major chord sounds happy. But it's because you hear it as the 1 chord, because it was the first thing we played. Let's say we go to a random minor chord. That sounds sad because you hear that as the main chord. In the context of an actual key, in other words, while you're doing actual songs, while you're actually writing, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they don't sound happy or sad, despite in and of themselves, despite the 4 and the 5 being major, and the 2 and the 3 being minor. The 2 and the 3 aren't sad sounding. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. That 2 chord doesn't sound. It sounds quite happy, right? Let's say I do a 6, then a 4, 6, 4, 5, 6, 4, 2. They all sound sad. Why? Because the 6 is nearby. The 6 is what's on your mind. The 6 is what counts to the listener as resolution. That's the important thing. So a 6 or a 1 will always establish them, or virtually always establish themselves as the new tonic, the new main note of the key, the new main what counts as resolution. So think of it like this. 2, 3, 4, 5. They're just white socks, right? 6 is a brand new pair of dark blue jeans. If you wash your 2, 3, 4, and 5, if you wash your white socks with the dark blue jeans, they're all going to come out a little blue, right? So 6, 5, 4, 6, 3, 4. They all sound sad because the 6 has stained them all. 6 will stain 2, 3, 4, and 5. As soon as I go to a 1 chord, think of 1 as a brand new red sweater. If you put this in with your socks, then they all come out a little red, right? 1 will stain all intervening 2, 3, 4, and 5 chords happy. So 1, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Now watch this. They're all sad now. They're all sad until I I do a 1. They're all happy now. Here, as a writer, here's the way you think. And this is why you don't do this bifurcation that theorists talk. Theorists, really hardcore theorists, tend to be not, I mean, let's face it, most of them aren't writing really heavy, great stuff, right? I mean, it's not like most guitar shredders are or anything like that. Most people aren't, but I think if you build your theory in such a way that it leads you away from thinking of certain ideas, what's important about a theoretical edifice that you're building is the fertility toward suggesting ideas to you, ideas that sound really great, right? You want to think of any theoretical concept in a way that makes you think of great ideas that sound killer, right? That's the point. It's not, you're not going, I don't think the main goal should be exhaustive accuracy, even though you can achieve that anyway. But notice, there's a gnat flying around my line. Okay. So a 6 chord will stain all intervening 2, 3s, 4s, and 5s. Sad. There's a mixed metaphor in there, but a 1 chord will stain all the next chords happy, right? And that is a very powerful writing tool. Very powerful writing tool that, if you're like me, you start, the way I write something is here is a thing that is very important for me to say lyrically to someone, right? It's something that is very important to me, that I feel like should be a message that my life, if my life were devoted to the following statement, that would be a life well lived, right? And I start from the lyrics, and then I'm looking to make the chords reinforce those lyrics, right? You can go with a sort of irony where the chords, are happy and your lyrics are sad and stuff. And I've toyed with that. I tend to not be into that sound anymore. I'm not into that sound very much. So my point is, like, you can have the 1 chord show up and then all intervening chords will sound happy until you hit a 6 chord. When the lyric calls for that, when you want someone to feel the meaning of that lyric, right? You're attacking them intellectually with the lyric and sub-intellectually, animalistically with the chord, right? And you can do that with the timbres that you choose, and all the arranging devices, right? But that's the way you want to think. So it's why this type of thinking about the chords in a key is so fertile toward suggesting interesting ideas. That makes sense. There I go, asking questions of my video camera. So also, if you've ever had those songs where you're listening and it's like, man, is this a happy song or a sad song? Or sometimes this song feels happy, sometimes it feels sad. It's very likely what's happening there is you've recently run into a 1 chord and now you think the song is happy, and you've recently run into a 6 chord, now you think the song is sad. Incidentally, how do you get a song to sound like neither one? In other words, a song that's a different mode. A song based around the 2 chord will be Dorian. A song based around the 3 chord, like we heard earlier, really dark. These are really cheesy songs. I'm noodling. I'm improvising today. Normally they're much better. It's all the strumming that I'm doing. If you want it to sound really dark, that's that Phrygian sound, right? You can focus it around the 3 chord. But here's the thing. You pretty much can't let a 6 chord in the building or a 1 chord in the building, because here, back to this example. So 3, 4, 3. Right? got a pretty dark song happening here. It sounds like Phrygian. That's what Phrygian songs sound like, where 3 sounds like the main chord. But as soon as I let us... Notice you don't accept the 3 as the main chord anymore. You're waiting on it to get to that 1 chord. The 1 has now taken over, right? It's like when the Buccaneers traded or signed Tom Brady, right? It was his team. It didn't matter who was the team leader prior to Tom Brady getting there. It's Tom Brady's team now. Everybody in the locker room is going to listen to that guy who already had 6 Super Bowls, right? Sorry to the Europeans. Tom Brady is a professional foosball player. Almost always, if a 6 chord or a 1 chord show up in your song where you're trying to make 3 or 4 or 5 or 2 the main chord, the 6 chord or the 1 chord just took over, and the listener will not buy that 2, 3, 4, or 5 are the main is the main chord anymore. So the way you can't, if it, as soon as I do a 6, you're just waiting on a 6. The 6 just took over. One exception is, I mentioned this recently. For some reason in Mixolydian, the 1 chord doesn't always seem to take over. So case in point, 5, 4, 1. A Mixolydian song is a song based on the 5 chord. There's the 1 chord of the parent key right there, is the G. But none of us is buying it. You know, we're not thinking that's the new chord, the new tonic. That's still the tonic, right? So for whatever reason, Mixolydian has this power to stand on its own sometimes, even when Tom Brady is invited to the locker room. But for the most part, that's really hard to get away with. Generally, if you want to write a song that's based on one of these modes, keep 6 and 1 away. Or if you dip into them, it needs to be really fast. You know, just like right? I can get away with that. Probably a little longer too, but yes. So you're writing, one of your main writing tools is going to be invoking the emotion that either a 6 or a 1 imparts to a given section, right? So if you did 1, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, that section is going to sound happy. 6, 4, 2, 6, 4, 2 is going to sound sad, right? It could be 1, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 6, 4, 2, 4, 2, right? It's like, so you can stain an entire section by the fact that between 6 or 1, the most recent one you've heard is 6, right? So that section is going to sound sad. The most recent one you've heard is 1. That section is going to sound happy. It's a very, very powerful writing tool. It's a very big deal. This is also, and maybe this should be a separate video. So like I get to do jazz gigs in this town. I am a slightly below mediocre jazz player, I would say, because this town, oh my gosh, holy crap, there are some monster players in this town. So, but I get to play with all of them, and kind of try to hang, anyway, if you've ever checked out Funky Knuckles, you should check out Funky Knuckles. Sky Window, Mark Lettieri. I mean, it's sort of jazz. The players in this town are ridiculous jazz players, and I am not one of those ridiculous jazz players. I am a competent jazz player, right? But I love playing music that's not diatonic, right? Music that's modal, let's say. So like here's a chord, here's a chord, here's a chord. Chords that don't go together, right? And playing over that is a blast. It's a blast once you get the hang of it. I love those sounds, right? But notice Here's why. So most of my friends tend to write very non-diatonic, but when I say diatonic, I mean not derived from a key, right? So my friends tend, most of the musicians with whom I work, my best friends in this town, they write more, I would say, harmonically adventurous music than I do. Even though I love that stuff, I love Kenny Wheeler, Wayne Shorter. I love playing that stuff. I anyway, they tend to write that stuff, and I tend to not. First of all, they're working in a different genre than I am. I kind of do a almost Nordic sounding indie rock, I feel like, to some extent. And this is a just total, it's a very jazz fusion funk groove something city. And and I wouldn't move for $1 million, like this community is so perfect. But uh anyway, so they'll write stuff that's that's more harmonically non-diatonic, right? I tend to stick to diatonic stuff, and here's why. It's partly what we've been talking about, is that in diatonicism I have great control over what you, the listener, feels at a given moment. What do you feel in these cases? What do you feel when those happen? I think nothing-ish. Nothing-ish. There's an up in the airedness, right? Which works, right? It's very much an intellectual curiosity. It's a splash of color each time. It's very colorful, and there's something very beautiful about it. But it doesn't tell you, at very few points does it tell you, hey, this is something important, and you need to listen to this, and you need to consider that this might be something in the real world that's worth considering, that might be hurting people or hurting yourself or things like that. It's hard to mirror lyrics about real life when the harmonic situation has no overt emotional content. And that's why I tend to write very diatonic stuff, right? I'll break slightly away from it, right? Like we talked about in the last video or two. I think it was the last video. No, it was a couple of videos ago, right? Like a major 2 chord, and when I've been harping on the 6 chord, right? When the 6 chord is the main, but 6 chords pretty much always, I think, is always the main chord in every song, pretty much the whole time, mostly the whole time, for my stuff. So they're in minor keys, right? But I don't think it's an advantageous way to think of it. When I introduce a chord that's not diatonic, it's because against the diatonicism, it does have a certain emotional content, right? So back to this 6, 4, 6. Major 2 chord sounds surprisingly not sad. Whoops. Or, man, I'm an idiot today. So 6, 4, 6, flat 7. That flat 7 is not in the key, but notice it depresses the sad sound even further, right? It's a hopelessness, right? Notice some chords against the backdrop of diatonicism tell you what to feel. And that's, if you haven't picked up on this yet, that's what I'm all about, is mind control. Just forcing the listener to feel something so that they hear what I'm saying lyrically. That's the point, right? If the song never establishes a tonal center, it never establishes you should be feeling this and I'll slightly break away, right? If it's just completely floating up in the air, it lacks that particular power, the power of emotional mind control. even if it gains other powers that are quite significant, right? The splashes of color, which are fascinating, right? Which is why I listen to all the other music too, you know, because that stuff's also beautiful. And I think to some extent you want to make a choice for your music, you know. Even, you know, like Wayne Shorter will settle into diatonicism in places. So like a song that or like so C Phrygian. Piece of nuts. What are the? Yeah, that's what it is. It's like D minor, E minor 11 to. I think think the old book says C minor. I think it's a B flat over E. So like so far we're like this is diatonic. It's a 3 chord to the 4 chord in F minor or A flat. So, but then. And then it's like, what? Then it's like 2 5s and something. I should never have gone down this route because it's been forever since I played Speak No Evil, and I can't remember how it goes. Anyway, he will settle into diatonicism a little bit, but it's still, frankly, as much as I love him. I love him. I think he may be the greatest jazz writer of them all. Controversial take. I mean, and who's to say? But even then, even as much as he'll dip into diatonicism, it still lacks the same sort of power, the same sort of blunt confrontationalness of diatonicism, where I'm going to make you think about this. And that's the trade-off. I think you're looking to decide how much emotional power do you want to exert over someone versus intellectual curiosity do you want to give them. And I used to think you could really, really have both, and I think you can, but I almost think harmonically you barely can. It's not that in one direction you have to. It's not simplicity versus complexity. I really think it's mostly diatonicism versus non-diatonicism, and I think that's where it is. If you choose the diatonicism route, you can do more like what I do, which is obsess over your voicings, obsess over them, right? So there's a song called All of the Above. Let me find it here. Let me say. Hold on. All right. So like. The ending of this song called. So it's like so B minor 11 or B minor 9 to G major 9, then B minor 7, B minor, then D major 7 over F sharp. I mentioned that in the last video. Like obsess over your voicings, obsess over them. You can make a grand amount of color still in the key. I think if you glean anything from my playing, just noodling and stuff, it's the amount of color that's there. And yet you notice I almost never play notes that aren't in the key, right? There is so much color that can be had within the key. That stuff's all over. I obsess over the voicings on every song. So it becomes a big issue when a ton of instruments start getting stacked. A great example on the new album, there's a song called Phosphorus Kids, and man, there's ton of keys tracks, and some cleanup needed to be done with Melodyne on a few things, just to get the voicings to more or less cohere with each other, and present more just a single voicing, right? Not that every take ends up doing the same voicing, but that together they build a certain voicing, right? Obsess over your voicings. You can have so much color there, right? And then the other thing, if you want to build intellectual curiosity back into the diatonic stuff, it's focus your efforts elsewhere, rather than building in, oh, that's neat, into the chord progression. It doesn't have to be in the chord progression. It could be in the tones that you pick, right? And that's generally what I'll do. I'll build that intellectual curiosity into everything else, right? In my particular case, I make sure every one of those things, to me, it sounds like what the lyric means. There's a unified purpose. It's like I'm trying to say this one thing, and every single element. This is why these things take me forever and ever, and frankly, why I hate making albums. I can't stand it. I don't think I'll ever do it again. It just takes forever. It's a level of obsession that is not enjoyable, and so anyway, I'm getting to this point in my career where it's like I just want to do stuff that's fun to do, and making albums, man. Ugh. It's like I just couldn't even imagine starting another one. The first two were made out of sheer internal compulsion. I had to make them, and I don't feel that right now at all. I really don't want to do that. So maybe that'll change, I could definitely see that. Anyway, but obsessing over this sound, does this sound go with what I'm saying right now? So everything is lyrics first, and every single element is meant to support those lyrics, to reinforce what it's saying. If an intellectual curiosity, in my case at least, if an intellectual curiosity, if some neat idea will take away from the confrontationalness of the moment, I 100% of the time do not do it. 100% of the time. There's probably a very nice middle ground there that you could explore in your music, right? But I tend to just always break a certain way. So anyway, something to think about. 1 will stain all intervening 2, 3, 4, and 5 chords happy. 6 will stain almost always. By the way, it's possible to engineer a situation, but in general, 1 will stain all subsequent 2, 3, 4, and 5 chords happy until it hits a 6th chord, in which case subsequent 2, 3, 4, and 5 chords are sad. Experiment with it. Don't buy into this song, this is in a minor key or this is in a major key. You don't make that choice. And start thinking of minor key songs as being in a major key, but 6 is the main chord, right? You don't have to call the main chord 1. Just because it's the main chord doesn't mean it has to be called 1. That's a very good switch in your head. So it's again, very fertile ground for suggesting ideas. So that's a more or less overtly writing video, and I'm gonna start doing that. The way I figure we're doing writing, theory, playing, right? Playing stuff. Certainly the first bunch of videos were like that. Writing stuff is the theory stuff undergirds the writing stuff, as you'll notice, as you've now seen. So doing theory and writing, and then I may introduce a 4th category into this, man. Oh, we're doing AMA stuff. So 5 things. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and try to do these little explanations of Fantasticboom songs. And if you don't want to, if you think that's self-indulgent, then feel free to not watch. I think it might be self-indulgent. And again, I'll probably be my least likable in those videos. So not that I'm that winsome right now. So, I'll do an AMA this week. So if you theory questions, go to AMA 1. What did we say it was called? Lucky for Us, Music Theory is Easy, or Theory is Easy. Music, one of those. Lucky for Us, music, AMA 1. Lucky for Us, Theory is Easy. Any theory questions, any theory topic you're struggling with, go to the comments, write it down. I'll answer every single one of them, and maybe we'll give you some magic bullet to get through whatever it is you're struggling with. So, this video is too long. So, anyway, bye.